Silent Voice, or The Shape of Voice as the title cards that bookend the film would indicate, is a new Japanese anime film that has recently just been released here in the UK. Not in a wide release. I mean, it's more than just a limited release, but it's not available in like cinemas nationwide, whereas the film like Beauty and the Beast is in 300 plus cinemas. A Silent Voice is only in 25 plus cinemas, so if you are interested in this film and do want to check it out, you probably have to seek it out because it might not be playing in a cinema near you. However, I was lucky enough to have a little independent theatre near me that was playing A Silent Voice. I got to see a screening of it last week, and then it was so popular they had a second screening, and then that one sold out straight away and they had a third screening. So luckily I got that little local independent theatre near me and they showed A Silent Voice. I went to go and see it and I really liked this film. I thought it was really great. Now, do I think this is as good as, say, Your Name, which was another anime film that came out last year that I saw? No, but, you know, Your Name for me was like absolutely spectacular. That was one of the best films of last year for me, and I think it was probably the best animated film of 2016 as well. But even though I don't think A Silent Voice was on that same level as something like Your Name, I still thought it was a great film, and for me I don't really like comparing them. Even though there are some similarities between the two films, I think A Silent Voice was quite different. I really liked Your Name because that was something quite different as well, but that was much more of a kind of a universal kind of film that appealed to a lot wider of a demographic. This film I don't think is going to be as well loved as something like Your Name. Your Name wasn't a mainstream film at all, but it did still kind of deal with kind of certain genres in a way that made it seem more relatable for a wider demographic, whereas this film, it's a teen drama, it's a high school drama in a sense, but a very unorthodox teen drama, a very unconventional teen drama. It was very different, so I think this is a film that's going to kind of polarize a lot of people. It's going to be kind of quite divisive even amongst anime fans. I seem to be gauging that kind of response from people, that I don't think this is going to be as universally loved as something like Your Name was, but I did still really like this film. I did think it was really great. One of the best things about this film for me were the themes and issues that were tackled and explored within the story of this film, because I sound like a broken record at this point, but every anime film I see, and you know, anime films in general, they are more kind of serious and mature in terms of the themes and the issues that they deal with and that they explore, and that's what I love so much about anime films, more so than say like Disney, Pixar, even though I love, you know, mainstream American animated movies. That's what I love so much about Japanese anime films, is that they are more serious, they are more mature, they're not for kids really, they're for adults. Particularly this film, because yes, majority of kind of anime kind of films that are kind of dramatic films do deal with very kind of serious and mature themes, but this film even more so, because it deals with themes and tackles issues like, you know, bullying, like, you know, people that are hard of hearing, you know, self-hatred. It gets quite dark, you know. It's not a film for kids, it's not a film for people that like kind of light fluffy films. This is quite a deep kind of dramatic, almost dark film at times. And another thing I really liked about this film is how it told its story in a very unique and original way, because this film is essentially about a bully who kind of picks on someone, and then years later he's got to try and kind of reconcile with his past actions and try and make up for his past mistakes and try and change and prove to the people around him that he has changed and kind of make up for his past mistakes. And I love the fact that this film deals with that from a very kind of unique angle, in that I can't really think of any other film I've ever seen. There's probably been some films, but I can't think of anything in recent memory where it's a film about bullying, but it's from the bully's perspective. Like, it's not like a stereotypical kind of like, oh, the bully's this horrible asshole guy. You know, he is a bit of an asshole at the beginning of this film, but as the film progresses, it goes into this kind of character's psyche, and it really kind of shows us what it must be like for someone like that, what it is really like for someone who picks on someone and then years later they feel ashamed of their actions and what they did, and they've got to try and make up for their past mistakes. And can you make up for what you did to someone? Can you kind of make up with that person? What would it really be like, you know, psychologically, if you went through something like that and then you had to kind of change and you became a different person and you felt really bad for what you did? And then can you make up with people from your past? You know, what is it really like for someone like that? And I love this film for that, because I've never seen a film that I can think of anyway where it deals with themes like bullying, like self-hatred, and it is a teen drama, it is a high school film, but again, very unconventional and very different. And I love this film for that. I love the fact that it tackled themes and issues like that and told the story from a very unique angle in a way that I can't remember any film ever doing before, where we can really get into this bully's head, essentially, because he is a bully at the beginning of this film and we don't really like him. You know, he's the protagonist, but we kind of hate him at the beginning of this film, and then as the film goes on, we kind of really put into his headspace to see what it really must feel like to be that person. The fact that he ends up changing, and then he's got to come to terms with, you know, how can I make up for what I did? Can I make up for what I did? Can I mend bridges with people that I, you know, weren't very nice to? And I thought this film was really brave and bold and daring and ambitious, and I love this film for that and how they dealt with those themes. And of course, the fact this film also revolves around a character who was hard of hearing, who was deaf essentially. And again, I can't really think of any other film in recent memory that has kind of a main character who can't speak essentially, and the fact that they have this relationship with one another, the bully and the girl who's hard of hearing, and it is really quite fascinating and thought-provoking to watch unfold because it's very unconventional, as I said, it's very different. There's kind of a romantic element to this film. It's not a romance really, not at all. I've never really seen a film like this, and that it dealt with things like bullying, like self-hatred, and it was never one-sided. It was never like, this person's evil, this person's good. It's like everyone had flaws, everyone felt real, everyone had these problems and struggles that we're dealing with. You know, we were never like rooting for like one person. We were seeing from all different people's perspectives and all these different angles, and I think this film was really incredible for that. And of course, as far as technical aspects go, this film looked absolutely fantastic. It's very different from a visual perspective as something like Your Name or a kind of Studio Ghibli film, for example. It looks less polished in a way, and what I love is that it very much looks like a manga on screen, and I later found out it is actually adapted from a manga comic, so it makes sense that it actually looks like we're watching a kind of a comic on screen that actually looks like the manga, and I really like that. And also I love the fact that, and for a lot of this film, they kind of frame the characters in that we didn't see their faces, because a lot of this film, the main character is going through this phase where he can't really look at people in the eye, and he's kind of been ostracized by the kind of people around him, and he hasn't really got any friends, and he can't really kind of communicate with anyone. And the fact that the film showed that through how it was shot, you know, cinematography, it's not really, you know, it's not live action, but you know, and the fact that we rarely saw people's faces. It focused a lot on bodies and hands, and obviously hand gestures with the kind of sign language with the character who was hard of hearing. And I really liked how they did that with this film. I really liked how the director had her own kind of unique visual style in terms of how she shot the film, and how they kind of frame certain characters, and just the whole look of the film I absolutely love. Very different, but I still love the look of the film. And one last thing I have to mention as far as positives are concerned is the sound. For me, even though I really like this film from all other kind of aspects, what stole the show for me in this film was the sound. And it's rare I talk about something like sound, but the sound editing in this film, the sound design, was so incredible. It's really what stood out to me from quite early on. The use of sound, the sound design, the sound editing, how the film was cut to certain sounds was really great because it really enhanced the experience. It's, you know, well known that sound is a really big part of a film and can really kind of change a film and really make a film, and it certainly did in this case, because from the get-go, and I love anime films, and there's a lot of anime films that are some of my favourite films of all time. I love the Studio Ghibli films, but what I loved about this film that was seemed very kind of unique and I haven't really seen before was the use of sound, and how the sound design was just really incredible. I don't want to go into specifics too much, but there's this particular moment at the beginning of the film where the character is about to do something and it suddenly cuts to something else and we realise they were daydreaming, and it's quite kind of like, it's quite a shocking moment that really kind of physically affected me and took me back. And I think the sound was a really big part of that, and how the visuals were cut together with the sound and the sound design. As I said, there's a scene with like fireworks going off, and there's so many sounds in this film where it feels so kind of real and palpable, and it really made this film feel like an experience for me. It was really great. However, as much as I love this film, and I do think it was a really great film, there were some negatives that I had. There were some things that I think weren't quite as good as others. And the first is that even though I love the fact that this film tackled these very kind of serious and mature themes and issues, at times it did kind of get a little bit bogged down in those themes, where at times it was less about the film and it was more just about these themes and about these issues. Toward the end of the film it started to get a little bit bogged down in that, but for the most part it really worked. Also, I felt like at times there was some dialogue that was a little kind of on the nose. For the most part the dialogue was really great, but there were some instances here and there where it was a little bit kind of just saying it how it is, and just it was a little too on the nose for me. But I can let that slide because, like I said, it wasn't a big issue. And also my biggest negative was probably that this film kind of dragged a bit in places for me, especially as it got towards the end of the film, the second half of the film, but particularly as it neared the end, it started to drag, it started to feel quite long. And this film was only a little over 2 hours, but as the film went on, I liked the film, obviously. I was never kind of bored, I never lost interest, but there were times when it did start to drag. I think the pacing was a little off in that second half. There were times where it did feel like it was dragging a bit, and it did feel like it was going on, but every time I started to kind of drift away, it would always do something, and something would happen that would then kind of pique my interest and hook me back into the film. So like I said, I never got bored. There was nothing I disliked about this film in the story or anything that happened that I didn't like. It's just that I felt like there were some pacing issues as the film went on, and it did drag a bit in parts for me. So overall, as you may have figured, I really liked A Silent Voice. Not as good as something like Your Name, but still a really great film in its own right that was very different. I think this film may divide audiences and anime fans in general because it was very different, it was very unconventional. It wasn't as, kind of as universally appealing, I don't think, as something like Your Name, but it was still a film that dealt with very serious and mature themes and issues in a way that felt respectful and tasteful. It was emotional as well, very emotionally satisfying. So overall, I'm going to give A Silent Voice 4 stars. And there we have it, that wraps up my review of A Silent Voice. Have you seen the film yet? And if so, what do you think about it? Or if not, what is your favourite anime film? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you like this and you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to see more. But for now, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.